interviewing Esther Hirsh Goldstein. My name is Ann Page. This is the beginning of tape 3. And could you please tell me what happened? I want to go back to the conflict in Kelsenkirchen with the Farina.
No, we were in Sömmerda.
Okay.
We were in Sömmerda, and I was the cook for the SS. And there was a girl, Francine was her name, and she was cleaning the shoes for them and making the beds. She was working there. One day she cried terrible that she's very, very hungry. And I was cooking farina for them for supper. So I had farina with milk. I looked around and I didn't see anybody. So I said, Francine, come here and I'll give you a little farina. I took a bowl and I put in a little farina in milk and she ate it. All of a sudden, an SS comes in and he says, you gave our food away to her. I said, I didn't give her only a little bit. She was very hungry. And she started to cry. And he reported me. He reported me that I gave their food for the girl to eat. So they took me for a hearing. But there was the Obersturmführer. He was the chef, the main, and I used to make every morning, I had to do that, to bring him coffee. But he had a girlfriend, she was an SS too, so I took 2 cups of coffee there. And he liked me. He brought 2 eggs once and told me to make him a cake. And I made a cake. I don't know how, but I made a cake. I made a cake, and he was very glad. So he had the cake, and he always liked me. So when he reported me to the SS that I gave the farina, so he started to say it wasn't such a terrible thing what I did, but he insisted, that guy. Another soldier walked in, an SS, and he says to him, I told her to give her the farina because I wasn't here for supper. And she's cleaning our shoes. I told her to do it. And that's how I was saved. That's how I was saved, which was a terrible thing for them to give a little farina from their food to a girl who was so hungry. And that went on, and I had to be very, very careful. But my friend, who was a sister of mine, Frida, they adopted me. We were the 3 of us, and she was very sick in the hospital. She was very sick in the hospital, and in the morning, they didn't give them enough food in the hospital. They were very hungry there, too. In the morning, I used to put a piece of bread in a toast in my pocket, and in a cup a little coffee, and I used to bring her to the hospital. And that's how she was saved. That's how she was saved. Once, I never forget, it was Christmas, and I had to make donuts. And I did. I made donuts. I don't know, we just managed. They gave us the material, and I was working with a girl, her name was Magda, and we became like sisters. We worked together, and we made, and I took one of those donuts in my pocket, which I'll never forget, and went to the hospital and gave it to Frida. And she got very sick because she had typhoid, and she wasn't allowed to eat, and I didn't know that. But she was saved. She ate that donuts, and she'll never forget, and I will never forget. This girl lives in California. We're still in contact. She always says, this is my sister who saved my life. And we always talk about it. We call each other. And I go to California. And this goes on. But that's how it was that time when I was in Sömmerda.
So that SS officer actually lied to save your life.
Yes.
He lied and
Yes.
said that you were
Yes.
polishing shoes.
No, she was polishing
was-
the shoes.
Mhm.
And he said he lied to save my life because he said that he told me to give his portion to the girl.
Mhm.
So that's how I was saved.
Did you remember his name?
No,
No.
I never remembered anyone's name
Mhm.
for the SS. We just knew this is this one and this is this one. And they took every morning the girls to the working camp. They worked in munition factories,
Mhm.
the girls. They marched there and they marched back at night.
Mhm.
And we did the cooking.
Mhm.
And we did the cooking and we had big kettles. And we cut out the meat and put in the potatoes, whatever. And when they came home, they had a bowl of soup with everything in it. And every morning they gave out the bread.
Mhm.
So that's what it was. And that's how it went on all the time it went on that way. Yes.
Were you
So-
able to be observant at all when you were in the camp?
There was no observance.
Mhm.
We were happy that we had food, whatever it was. We never cared if it was ham or it was beef or whatever. There was one woman who did observe, and she was unbelievable. I used to give her, nobody should see, a bowl of potatoes. I don't know how she made the potatoes, but that's what she lived on. And when we were marching from Altenburg on the way, one woman lost her daughter. You see, we were like, everybody was running because the fire was on, and we were afraid, and everyone in behind houses. So she lost her daughter. She didn't know where her daughter is, and she was on one side. So I used to watch her and give her also a little food that she should survive. I never seen her after. I never see anyone after, because we all were divided. Everyone was running different places. By the way, my friend Frida, who did become my sister, she got lost. And she found on the way, when she was lost, an American soldier. And he came from the same town as she came. And they were very, very happy to meet because they knew each other. And that soldier brought her to the United States and married her.
And you were in contact with her when she came to the United
She
States?
came to United States and went to Pittsburgh, and she lived in Pittsburgh. And when I came to the United States, I didn't come to that far yet. Okay? Let's go back to the
Apartment. Okay, let's go back. Tell me what happened when your husband found your husband-to-be found the apartment.
When Sal found an apartment, then he had a brother who came back too. So when we went into that apartment, so I had already the three boys. 2 boys and a girl. So I started to cook and to prepare. I made coffee in the morning, and he brought bread, and we ate, and my Sal's brother says to me, his name was Sam, this is already a home, because we were together. And one day, when we were together, another girl comes and knocks on my door. And that was a cousin of mine. And she didn't have anybody, only 2 sisters in the United States, her brother and her sister and her sister's children with her mother. She lost everybody. She was just alone. Her name was Frances. So I said to Sal, I have to take her in because she has nobody, only me. I'm her only cousin, and she doesn't know anybody. So he says, fine, she'll live with us. So we had already, I had the 2 girls and 2 boys and Sal's brother, so we lived together. We lived together and we stayed together. And one morning, somebody knocks on the door. It was on a Friday, which I'll never forget, because I was baking there already. And a little boy comes in, and that was my sister's son, the 3rd child, the sister I found in Budapest. And this was the brother. He wasn't 13 yet when he came. You see, when he got to Auschwitz, he got mixed up. He didn't know where they put him. So he ran to his mother. When he ran to his mother walked in to the camp. They didn't take her right away to the gas chambers. So he got lost. And when they walked through the gate, then she said to him, "Go to your father." So he went to his father. And he was a very beautiful child. And everybody watched him there and took care of him in camp. So he survived. The one only child that came home in that age. And he came in, so we were very happy to see him. And he cried, "Where is my mother?" Because he seen his mother through the gate in the other camp with his sister. So he was sure that she's going to survive, but she didn't. She didn't. When they took her daughter away from her, she was very sick, and they took her to the gas. So this way, now I had already a few children, and we were all together. So I was waiting for my brother to come back. Then one day another boy comes in, and that was my oldest sister's son, his brother, the oldest, William, and he came home. So from one sister was 2 children left, and from one sister was 3 children. Most all the sisters had 3 children each, which didn't come back. And my brother had also, one brother had 3 children, and nobody came back. But these children came back, so they stayed with me. And when my brother they allowed him to come to Ungvar from Prague, so he came and he says to me, "Now we could have the wedding." So here I don't have what to put on. And we met in the street, my niece's cousin, Ilonka. And she says to me, "I found in our house a box, and there is my sister's wedding gown, and I'll give it to you." So she gave me her sister's wedding gown. She found it in the house. And that's when we came and we said, "I'm going to get married." So we bought a few chickens, and I cooked for my wedding, and we were already a family. I had my brother and a few children, and they made a wedding for me, and that's how I got married. When I got married, after that, we lived together in this house, and my husband was going in the street, and he found an English soldier, Jacobs, and he brought him to our house. It was his cousin, and he came to look for people, to Shorod. Maybe he'll find family, but he didn't find anybody. So he came to my house, and I said to him, "You know, I have in the United States 2 brothers, and the mail doesn't go yet from Europe. Would you take a letter and I'll write down who survived and you mail it in England?" He said, "Sure, I will." And I took a paper and a pencil, and I wrote to my brother, and I told them who survived. So I had 2 children from one sister and 3 children from the other sister. I wrote them down who survived, and my brother Jack survived. And my brother was an American soldier, Nathan, and he was in Europe, in Czechoslovakia. He was looking all over if he's going to find family, but he didn't find anybody. When he came back here to the United States, a week later, I always had in my mind, and I always studied, I shouldn't forget the address, Franklin, New Jersey. Frank Hirsh, Franklin, New Jersey. I always studied it and had it in my mind. I shouldn't forget it. And I wrote a letter, and he came home. A week later, he got a letter. He got a letter, and he knew who survived because I wrote it. And then my brother says to me, you cannot stay here because they will close the borders. We have to go to Czechoslovakia. We cannot stay in Uzhhorod. We go, but so we have to take everybody. So we went to Prague, my husband and my brother and I, and Sal's brother stayed with the rest in Uzhhorod. And my brother was entitled to get whatever he wanted from the Czechs. So he wanted a farm where we should have food and we should be able to stay. And we looked around and we got a farm. And then he went back and got the children, and we all stayed in Cheb, in Haya Uchebu. And there we had a farm, and from there we used to, then the mail already was going to the United States, so we used to write to the United States. And my brothers knew where I am, so they used to write to us, and we got in contact. And my mother had here brothers who lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they were very well off and very good to my mother. They always send us money. And this uncle sent the papers. He guaranteed that we wouldn't be here on relief or something, that he's going to help. And my brothers, and they sent us papers. So we went there, and we started organizing to come to the United States. So when we got the papers and we got the passports, we were arranging to come to the United States. So we were the first shipment from Prague to come to the United States. We came through Sweden. We came to Sweden, and in Sweden we stayed on the boat, on a boat. But one thing, when we were going with buses from Prague to Sweden, we slept one night in Germany, and in Germany was already American soldiers, and they were on the borders watching, and I was so scared there. You know, I never seen a black person in my life. And when one soldier got on the bus, I got very scared, and they said, it's okay, that's his skin. And he just looked over, and we went further, and we stayed a week in Sweden. My brothers arranged that, and we came to the United States with a throttling home. We were a full ship. I was pregnant when I came to the United States.
I'm sorry, what was the name of that ship again?
Throttling Home was the name of the ship. Mm-hmm. And from there we went to England to pick up 500 passengers in England. And there, when we picked up the passages, was a doctor between them. And he seen me laying there, and I couldn't eat anything. He was very, very nice. And then we stayed there for, well, it took us a long time to come with the ship. But we arrived here in the United States in June 17th, 1946. My brothers, the two brothers with my nephew, was waiting at the ship. I came here with my husband and that cousin that I said she came. She didn't have anybody, but she had two sisters here. And the two sisters sent her the papers. So we came together. And then the rest of us. So I came to my brother. We went to New Jersey. And I stayed in Franklin, New Jersey for my brothers. And there I had my child. 2 months later, August 10th, my daughter was born. But my husband had a cousin here. He was a silk manufacturer, and he took him in right away to work. So he was working by neckties. He was making ties, and every week he came back for the weekend to New Jersey, and that's how he commuted till my child was a little bigger. Then we found an apartment on the east side in New York on Rich Street, 2-4 Rich Street. That was Rich and Grand Street. And we went there, and my rest of the family came and stayed there with me. They stayed with my brother, and then they came to New York. And there they started looking around, and they all found jobs, and they started working. The little guy he went to school here. He was 13 years old, and he went to Hebrew school here. They even made one day in the calendar, I look in the calendar and there was his picture and a whole write-up of the picture of his life. They put him in. I had it and I gave it to his children. I still had it. I saved it all the years. And that was treasure. That was treasure. But we started here, and I came from New Jersey. He found an apartment, and we were living there in Rich Street. And from there, we were living there for about 3 years. And then I had another child. I had a little boy, and he was born in Beth Israel Hospital on 2nd Avenue.
What is his name?
His name is Eugene Hirsh.
And your daughter's name?
My daughter's name is Sylvia, after my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Her Hebrew name is Surah, like my mother was. And he's named after both fathers, Eugene Harold Hirsh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we started our life here. So then the children came, my sister's children, and they all started working. They got jobs, and they went to night schools. My husband went to night school. And that's how our life started here. After that, 3 years I lived in Rich Street. From there we moved down to Brooklyn. And we lived on Prospect Place, right across from the Jewish hospital. And my children went to school there. And I used to sew and make them clothes and make them do whatever we can. And my husband was working by ties. And I helped. I did the same thing home. And everything was going on. And we accumulated a little money. We moved from there to Argyle Road, to Brooklyn also. And we opened up a men's and boys' wear store. So I used to help in the store and took care of the children.
What was the name of the store?
The store was Hirsh's Men's and Boys Wear. And I used to do the alterations when they bought pants right away. I shortened them and I did it. And they all liked us. They really liked us because we didn't charge much, and any alteration there was always ready. And that's what we did. And then my children started to go to school when they finished. Then my daughter started Brooklyn College, and my son wanted to be an engineer, but so he went to school too, but when he didn't want to go to Brooklyn College. He wanted to go to Cornell. So he went to Cornell for engineering, and everything was going well. And my niece, she was my daughter always, and she got married. She found a nice man, and she got married, and everything was going well. And my son, when he finished the Cornell, so he was working, and he didn't like to be an engineer. He said the Vietnam War was on. He was reclassified. So he went to teach math. And everything was okay, but he said he doesn't want to be a tool. He wants to be a doctor. So he wants to be a doctor. He called up a friend who went with him to Cornell, Dr. Deutsch, and he told him he needed a few more credits. He went to have the credits, and he went to medical school. So he became a doctor, and my daughter married a very nice boy, and everything was okay.
Can you tell me that story about when your son was a little boy in school? You went to pick him up.
Yes. I used to go to pick up. My children were brought up with love and never allowed birth in the house. And one day I got a note from the teacher, from my daughter's teacher, and she called me I should come there. And I came there, and she says to me, "You know, I don't hear your daughter. She's so quiet. She doesn't talk." I said to her, "Did you holler at her? Don't you dare and holler at her. She's scared of you. I never holler at my child." So she apologized, and she didn't holler at her, and my daughter wasn't scared of her, and everything was all right. And my son was an excellent student. The teacher always liked her. He used to make a report with 100 pages. And when an open school day was, and the teachers called the parents, so they used to say, the teacher used to say, "You see, this mother's son wrote this book, 100 pages." And when I used to leave, and he was in the 4th grade, and she used to say to me, and hug him, "I wish to have a son like him. He's going to be a professional man." She always said that to me, always. And it turned out that he is, and he helps a lot of people. Thank God for that. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. He saved my life already.
And what about your grandchildren? Tell us about
My
your
grandchildren, my daughter has 2 sons, 2 grandchildren. I have my daughter, and they are brilliant, brilliant children. They never had a loud word in their house. Their mother was a teacher, and the father was a principal, is a principal. So they never had a loud word in their house. They grew up very, very nice. And they went to Hebrew school, to Flatbush Yeshiva, and they graduated honor students. And from there they went to college. They made Yale.